see you here live for a change. And I guess we'll just jump right into it. First thing on the director's report is the budget. So, Dr. Johnston, it's all yours.
All right, great. Just welcome everybody. Good to see you again. We'll go through this again. It's been just a challenge with this year a little bit more than others, and I'll walk you through the front page and point out some things. And then even we're working on it still this afternoon. Again, this is first glance that you all have even had at this. We're not asking for any kind of vote tonight. Of course, that's at your pleasure, but we would need to sometime between now and May 18th vote to approve that before the County Commission Budget Committee is expected to review that. So if you go down through there, what you're going to see is some highlights, and I'm going to ask Mr. Potts to add some things after I go over just some highlights. It's a 1% raise for certified and classified. That's across the board. Commitment to capital funds remained at $500,000. You recall, if you look at last year's, it actually ended up being 700, a little over 700. That's because we went to County Commission and they gave us 2 pennies. Mr. Potts will talk about that. So it's at 5. The one thing that was very difficult this year was textbooks are normally somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000 on a high year. We saw this coming several years ago, even before I got here, that this is the English adoption, and it is all components of that. It's English, it's writing, it's literature, it's grammar, and it's K-12. So the money comes in actually at $1,456,196 and a nickel, because just to make sure it's down to the penny. That's what the cost is on that. So that just made one of the things very difficult. The good news is, that the bullet point below that is next year we don't have to do anything. The state has put off the math adoption, so we will not have any textbooks. So that'll give us a chance both to catch our breath from that, but also plan going forward to where we don't get have this big of an offset again. Teachers had mentioned throughout the year in surveys and different things about needing extra behavioral supports and to address just behavior issues of students and mental health issues that so many of our kids have with ACEs and traumas and those type of things. There are some assistant positions added so that each school will have the ability to have a room to where we can implement some of those mental health services and behavioral supports. It's going to be more than what would traditionally be known as an in-school room. That's just punitive. It's going to be a place that we can get kids in there and try to get them help and find out what's going on and those kind of things through support for student services and those things. We did absorb a few positions. Nobody, so to speak, is being let go, terminated. We do have a couple of interim spots that they knew going in as they took people's spots that they would be at the end of the year, may not be renewed. But we were able to look at numbers. We've got a couple of schools, we'll be addressing that in the next week or two. A couple of schools that have just their enrollment is where it is right now, so we'll be looking at moving a couple of teachers within the district to other schools to balance that out. And we'll also be looking then at the need that we, as folks were retired, we didn't necessarily have to replace based on numbers. One of the assistant principal positions at the high school is going down by one. They still, I feel, will have enough support there. In the bus transportation safety, just broad category, in this budget you do have 4 buses. You can mark out the word new. I meant new to us, but we have been recently over the last 3 or 4 years, 5 maybe. Sherry tells me that she is able to find great deals on buses that last a long time. So we don't go out and buy a bus that's within 8,000 miles of having to be taken offline, but she's able to buy buses. And we can get more buses that way, and then she does a great job of staggering them out, and she puts the shortest routes on buses that have a certain amount of mileage and longer routes so that we can make them last as long as we can. So, but anyways, there's 4 buses in the budget. And then also I can show you the lines if you really want to get into that, but the zoning program, computer program we looked at in the budget, and the GPS that we had talked about last year, and those things. So again, I mentioned GPS again under safety measures and entrances. Would be handled either through capital this current year, as we'll talk about later, and or some of those things out of the 500 that's mentioned above. There are some pockets of reserves that just get carried over each year in those things. You can look in the top right, the BP April estimate is $38,870. We expect May's estimate, we were told yesterday, could be here by the end of next week. So that means somewhere between now and June 1st. But that's what we were told from the state, so we hope to get that before if we do get back together next Thursday. Mr. Potts will talk about maintenance of effort. I do want to take you to page 5 of the actual budget. because like I said, we've been working on this for days and trying to, one of the things, I think you'll talk about streamlining the process. If you go down to the next to last entry on page 5, 71, 100, 722, 15, regular instruction equipment, there's $300,000 budgeted right there. And I'm going to recommend that we take that down to 0. And then the reason is that money is in there to buy laptop computers and to address students that don't have those grades. And some, both those categories are the next one, but the next one is more so for the carts where they charge on and some replacements. But those were to buy new ones. And we looked up again late this afternoon the CARES Act, and we believe that it certainly would qualify to buy technology in the CARES Act, and that will be money not associated with this budget that's coming into the county. So that helps us get down closer to where we need to be. So if you go back to page 1, just as a point of reference, at the very top in the right, instead of $690,581, that number will be $390,581. And then, Mr. Potts, if you would talk us through some of those things. On page 1, it's numbered page 1, the revenue
And
side.
where on page 1?
Top right, where it says $690,581, very top right.
Oh, okay.
If that $300,000 comes back there to where then that number changes to $390,581. So that helps a bunch right there. Some points of reference as you look through it. Again, we'll talk as long or as little as you'd like. Always we're looking for inefficiencies. We, gone back and really reduced some categories where I felt like there was money in them, in an effort to be transparent. That didn't necessarily have to be in them. It's just extra, just in case. But so we didn't run it down dangerous. I looked even at our legal line, and we've spent right at 74% of it this year, and I didn't want to take it down anymore because what we've spent in the last 2 months, we had a payout to another attorney fee there and had a due process, but then also the COVID-19 stuff. We're getting lots of guidance, we're getting emails, we're making phone calls to make sure we had some employment issues and questions throughout the month of May. So I think we've spent 27 of that 40 in this year. So again, getting it down to 390 helps us, and I'll let him explain what that means in terms of fund versus reserve versus piggy bank, or however else we want to do that, if that's okay. One of the things we found is several years ago, there were, just to be transparent, there were 3 people in our system that are currently doing the work of assistant principals. They're listed as assistant principals on their door. They're called assistant principals in the yearbook, but they weren't coded assistant principals. So like on the line for assistant principals, you'll see it's up. But that increase there is met with the deduction where they were listed previously, and I'd have to go look at that object code and see. So those type of things. But anyways, just to go over that with you there and those things. So, Mr. Potts, if you have anything to add or clarify, or if I messed up, correct it, please.
Okay, so the second page, not number 2, but the second page has a few of my notes I wanted to talk about for this budget process. First of all, this has been a little bit different this year for several reasons. Normally we get you this budget at least a week ahead of time with the issue going on that we're all aware of. It's made it kind of difficult to figure out what our revenue is going to be for the year, and we've had rule changes and guidance and all this stuff changing during this process. Not excuses, but there are things that have gone on. We have settled at a local sales tax number at 92% of the past 12 months for our budget, which happens to be the same number we budgeted last year. We are ahead of our sales tax budget for the county about 8% of last year. We would have to, our sales tax for the last 4 months would have to drop to 60% of the prior year for us to not make our budget in local sales tax. So that's good news. We've been conservative in that, and we should make that. Obviously things can change from day to day, but based on everything that I've seen right there, that should be good. We got some guidance today, or some information today from the state that said the March local sales tax, so that's based on actual March sales, so that would have been the first month that we would have had an impact on sales tax. It's actually up 5% in 90 of the 95 counties. So you remember March is when this started, and there was the stay-at-home suggestion. And I guess that's related to the stockpiling of toilet paper or something, I don't know. But the first number that I had projected we were going to be behind is actually, for most of the counties, at 5% above the prior year. So all indications are pretty good right now. We've looked at it by industry, our type of industry, restaurants versus hotels, drive-ins, all those kind of things, out-of-state sales. And we feel good about this number for this year and our rollover, and next year that as long as we don't drop more than to 92% of the prior year, then we're going to be okay on that local sales tax number. That's the one that's most volatile for the school systems. Dr. Johnson's already talked about the BEP, and also the state had mandated, this is one of our other issues this year, that we start tracking a lot of our expenses by school. That changed our accounting where we code all this, and we basically had to rewrite our budget program. So that slowed us down a little bit. I wasn't quite as responsive to Dr. Johnson and his group as I have been in the past as we're rewriting that. A couple assumptions. Health insurance is up 5% in the second half, and that's based on direction from the state insurance folks. Our other insurance is up 2.5%. It's workers' comp, liability, and property. We've already talked about the textbook adoption causing us an issue and increase in expenses this year. Already talked about the 2 cents on property tax that was for capital outlay last year. That was a one-year deal to add over a couple hundred thousand. So that comes out. And in this budget, that number is now $390 instead of $690. But there's use of either roll or fund balance or whatever we want to call we're going to have to use fund balance or roll to fund this. And I feel good about that because this increase in textbooks is a one-time thing. It's not an ongoing expense, so that next year we don't have to figure out how we're going to do it again next year. If we needed this money to be recurring expenses, salaries, utilities, things that happen every year, we'd be facing this year after year after year. But in this case, it's for a one-time situation for textbooks. So I feel comfortable with this situation. Yes, sir.
If I could just ask you to explain, on page 1, not the first page, literally page 1, we actually have done this before, and I think even before I got here. Last year, you can see, you just moved it from a different line, and there was a reason for money in hand versus assumptions, right? But you can see last year you did down on 34555, about 8 lines up from the bottom, it says restricted for education. On the first, on the 1920 budget, 313,299. So you're only on page 1, Mr. Cox. 3, 4,
The one that's numbered.
The one that's numbered number 1, yes. And if you go down to the bottom of the 57,983 and come up 7 or 8 columns, you'll see 313,299. So we did the same thing last year. It's just in a different line, and that's why I want Mr. Price to explain that. But it was 313,300 basically last year, and now it's 390,581.
For a one-time expense, we have a $1.3 million fund balance currently. And I would suggest we use it from fund balance because that's money in the bank and it's not counting on a roll. I feel comfortable with our roll coming up with not being in school the whole year. They've saved money in some areas, so on the expense side, I feel comfortable that we're going to have some roll from expense, and I still feel pretty good about the revenue side and having some there too. So I think we'll have a healthy roll to be able to replace whatever we use out of fund balance, plus build a little bit more back. Any questions on that?
One other part of the BEP, we're given a certain number that has to be added. It's a minimum that you have to add to the certified instructional salary, and that was $342,000 of the BEP. So in other words, whatever your total salary, not counting benefits and everything, just salary was last year, it has to go up under the BEP guidelines, a minimum of $342,000, and we exceeded that. So we've met that obligation. Is that?
That's correct. Okay. That's correct, yes. So one more thing on the sales tax. Obviously, this is a an item that we'll have to watch closely in the next few months if we have a recurrence of the virus or anything that could happen. So we're going to have posters in our office where every time we get on a monthly basis, we find out these numbers. We won't be tracking them and making sure we're on track. If for some reason we get off track, you'll know the month that happens. I'll be saying, or in fact, each time we meet, I'm going to report to you, we're on track or we're not on track. So you won't have a surprise at the end of the year. So it's important. I have to watch this on the county side as well. It's a big number. Okay. The next page, which is numbered 22, we kind of changed our sort of how we presented this, and it's talking about maintenance of effort and basic education. Everybody see that sheet? So this is how we track the local contributions from the local taxes. Last year was $17,175,000 in the budget. Everybody follow me? It's kind of in the middle there. Anticipated revenues. This year, $17,064,000, which is down $111,000. But you have the $200,000 that was a one-time allocation from the county to pay for extra capital. So we've talked to the state about this, and that's an exception. That doesn't go against us. So this number net will be about $100,000 more we're going to have in revenue on the school side from the county local taxes. Part of BEP, the next slide talks about required local match. We're required to match $13,629, and you can see the number above it, $17,064. So we're $3.5 million, almost $3.5 million above what's locally required, and this does not count debt service, which would if we got into that situation. But we're well above the required amount on the match from the county. And then the bottom part is just BEP. Talks about the breakout, shows the difference in those, and that's the April estimate Dr. Johnson already talked about. That could change here next week. So moving on to the budget, what you have a summary, and that's the one we've already looked at. It's page 1. That's a summary of your revenue compared to last year's budget. And then you have a summary of expenses by function. That's page 2. If you want to look at it by individual account within those functions, you can go through the rest of this, and it's quite a bit larger than what it normally is because we've had to break out these things into what we call sub-objects. If you want to get into it, you're welcome to do that. But it's required that I give you this information, and if you want to ask questions, look at it this week or tonight, and I'll be glad to help you. There's some things that move between accounts, but I can help you on those things.
This is partially in response to making sure every child has equity. So like theoretically, we could get in a situation where two schools have the same number of teachers and everything else. One school has all veteran teachers and one school has all rookies. And the state would say, why is this school teacher line item so much heavier than this school? And even down to, how much you're spending on supplies and materials and those things. So it's in an effort. I mean, that's federal and state, I believe, to get it down to where we're spending. Children in each school have equitable opportunity for education.
Why is there such a large difference in last year and this proposed in attendance?
What page are you on?
I'm on expenses by function.
Is that like $101,000, something like that? In attendance are those 6 new assistant spots that have been budgeted for next year to address those behavioral issues.
Okay. And then explain to me what operation of plant is.
72,610 is operation of plant, 72,620 is maintenance. So 72,610 is the money we use to keep things going. 72,620 is the money we use to fix things.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then like I said, the pages following that are the further breakout of each of those departments by function and even by sub-object. And then toward the end, you have 142 and 143. They are balanced.
Are you talking about pages? What-
No, Fund 142 and 143 federal.
Right after page 21, this page, and it goes back to page 1,
Okay,
and that is 142, that's the federal.
okay, go
But-
back to that one, okay, excuse me, I was going forward.
Yeah, when 22 is page 4, it kind of throws all the math off. That's that new math.
Carry the one.
Okay, and then, unless you want to look at that for a second, you want me to keep going?
I'd like to jump back just 1 second, and again, will you explain to me what falls into the line item on page 5? It was 71,100, 722,15 regular instruction equipment. That 300,000, that is new computer purchases? Is that what you said?
Initially, when that first started being put in there 2 or 3 years ago, like last year, it was 348, so that was new plus something else. You know, because it may be 11 different things that come in this, but this year was dedicated to the purchase of replacements of one-to-one devices and laptops for student use.
Okay.
So, and that number,
So that's why it's different than from the technology
that's correct.
line item?
Well, and that's what, sometimes it's because, depending on which pocket it came out of, like this
That's right.
came out of 015, which is elementary.
That's right.
So
Okay.
that's, you know,
Thanks for that. I'm sorry.
no, that's
No,
okay.
that's a good question.
And there may be some I have to say, I'll have to look that one up for you.
Also, a long time, that type of equipment was classified in the technology department. And I think now it's in regular instruction because it's state.
Gotcha.
The one below that, yes ma'am, that's exactly, right. The one below that is, notice how it was 0 last year and 477? It was in the budget last year, but it was in technology, and the auditors, I believe, said that needs to come out of technology because it's student devices and goes into instruction.
Ah, okay.
Times are changing.
There you go. There you go. Thanks for that explanation. Sorry to
No, it's
derail you
okay.
there.
Good question.
Are there any more questions before we move on?
I have 2 more comments, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So then, just a couple of real quick things. One of, if you go, it's not numbered, but it's the last page. There are two changes I'm going to propose to County Commission in the budget process. The first one deals with what budget amendments have to go in front of the Budget Committee and County Commission. For as long as I've been here, on the school side, County Commission had to approve anything that affected fund balance, salaries, or was moved between departments or functions, except for the schools, and they had to approve everything that happened on the schools. Didn't matter if we moved from $20 from computers to supplies, had to get approved by County Commission. I'm going to ask them to strike that from the resolution to approve the budget, to treat the schools exactly the way they do the county. Fund balance, salaries are moving between functions.
Which would still come before this board, it just wouldn't have to go on.
That's right.
So would that reduce the number of budget amendments we would be approving on an annual basis?
It would not, this body, but that means you wouldn't have to wait on County Commission to approve that, to take action.
Oh, okay.
Or strategically plan when we approach
Okay.
the
Like-
end for the
Like the mayor has called a special call meeting for Tuesday?
Yes, the 18th.
No, I'm sorry, Monday, the 18th, of the full commission, just to approve school budgets, because we had several this year, because so a lot of our departments started getting emails that said, you've not had school for 7 weeks, and you're not, but you've got to spend this money before June 30. Well, we can't just up and spend it, because it's in one line that we got to get to another department or something, but, so they called a special meeting, just, you've all already approved them. You either approved them in April or about to tonight, Lord willing, so. But we had, and you know, sometimes that's hard on finance, you know, we're not gonna go out there and try to spend $300, but we're talking about some this year could be more than that, you know, and you don't lose that money.
Right. So it won't affect this board, but it will affect what we have to do for County Commission. Yes, sir.
Mr. Jarman, I thought you
And my
would.
understanding is if we approve an amendment, then that's it. It doesn't have, you're saying it wouldn't have to go before the county commissioners, right?
Except for use of fund balance, change in salaries, or movement between departments. Everything else would stop right now.
But anything we take from fund balance would have to be approved by us and then go to the county commission, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So that's the first one, and then the second one I'm proposing is, about 3 years ago, the state changed the rules on minimum amount for bids, took it up to 25,000. In the budget process for the last 2 or 3 years, it's been an annual request to keep it at 25,000. I'm gonna ask them to strike that to make it going forward, so that we don't have to keep asking for it year after year. Actually, on the school policy, it doesn't state that it's year to year, but I have to go ask for it each year, and I'm asking for that to go on. Doesn't really affect you all, but I want you to know what I'm asking to change. Actually, it does affect you all, because I have to make sure that gets done so you can go by your policy.
So what you say on that, if we put things out for bid, we don't have to go, it can see not 25,000.
That's right. It used to be 10,000.
Yeah.
And so now the state changed it to 25,000, but you have to adopt that. You can't just do it. So
Yeah.
that's correct. It's now 25,000. So any questions on the budget we can answer?
As we stand right now, the only amount that you're asking to come out of our fund balance is 300,000?
395.
390.
or something. With the anticipation, Mr. Jarnigan, that it will be back in there once the roll occurs. Is that a fair way to say that?
That's correct.
3,950. That's the only amount.
That's correct. Now, there are a few items at the bottom where we're reserving, when you see those reserved on the revenue page, there's things like the ACT test that we, is that what it is, ACT?
Yes.
The ACT test that we didn't get to do this year, but we still have to do it again next year, twice. So we're taking that money and reserving it at the end of the year and going to have the expense. So that's sort of fund balance, but not exactly. On the revenue, goes toward the bottom.
Again, though, the anticipation is once the roll occurs, it'll be back.
Yes.
We used to, like last year, I think, that 313, we used to take it out of, just go ahead, we called it taking it out of the roll, because it never made it to the bank. So it's just funny, because, he calls that the fund balance, Sherry calls it reserve, and I call it piggy bank. So, we get it out of the piggy bank before it gets to the bank, but it's going back as quick as there's a roll.
That's true. So last year, we did it a little different on the county and on the school, and technically it's better to take it out of money you already have in the bank
Right.
than what you're anticipating you're going to have. I still feel good about what we're going to have. It should replace it, but we're taking money that we already have in the bank is all we're doing.
I have a question. I don't know if it's Dr. Johnson or Mr. Potts. If you're anticipating another BEP update or allocation, could they lower it from what we have received in April?
They could, that's always a chance, but they told us they're going to use month 6. There's certain months that are weighted that calculate the attendance, and they're going to, because we've not been in school month 7, they were going to use month 6 twice. So we're not anticipating that. And there's also discussions on making BEP, even going forward next year, to hold harmless, because it could be that there's parents that don't feel safe sending kids back whenever schools are reopened. Could be that we all see a decline in enrollment because of homeschool and other choices, and so there's all kinds of discussion. It's not anticipated. The governor did say that teachers in the BEP would get a 2% raise on the BEP, and of course we all know in this room that doesn't mean on the whole BEP, it just means on what they fund. But yesterday they also announced that, initially he had announced that they were going to take the minimum teacher salary from 36 to 38, next year 38 to 40. But they announced yesterday the 2% was passed by legislators. That's still in there. So we don't anticipate going down. But they have dropped the initiative to statewide to make the state minimum 38,000.
Curious, this is changing the subject a little bit, yet it's still involving money. I saw where they lost, where Lee lost, Nashville won a lawsuit against the voucher program, but he said they will immediately appeal it. And I know that they have already started asking for students to apply for the vouchers. Does that involve money that they could have been using for that teacher raise, or is it in another part?
I would need to see go back and track that and try to get you an accurate answer. I hate to mislead you. I do know that there was some money set aside that caused quite a controversy a few weeks ago that was in Career Ladder, which is a pocket of money for veteran teachers, and it was in that pocket. And they, because when I first came into education, I missed it by a year. I couldn't get on the Career Ladder. We still, but there's fewer each year that are on the Career Ladder as they retire and those things. And what happened was they took that money that was in a pile and said, we're going to take that out of the Career Ladder, and they applied it to the vouchers. So now, if those do remain stricken down or whatever, it'd be interesting to see if they go back and put that back into it. So, but I don't know enough to say, yes, it could have been. I just would hate to miss it.
Right, I was just curious to know where that money, if they had proposed, would be for raises, where they were using it.
On something else, that new school opening up an exit for, you think that's gonna be an impact?
I'm sure it'll have an impact as students enroll and those things, and no more or no less, because if the germs are in the, within the community. So, but I mean, at some point in time, it'll have an impact, and I think over time, it'll probably be even. Our job's to put out a good product, best we can do, and then I think we'll gain and lose. We've already lost some kids there, but we've had some go and come back. We've had some that started there and have come back. So, I'd have to chart it out, but, I mean, it'll have an impact over time. It'll need to watch the ebb and flow of it.
So, I'm sorry, does anybody have anything right now? Dr. Johnson, what did our beginning salary go to?
I put it in the packet. In this budget, I'm sorry, that scale is what we use. We used to start at that and tried to get it down and get it budgeted and those things. But it's 40, 44, and 48 for beginning. So what we did to take you through that process is really confusing.
Is it in this budget you just put?
No, ma'am, it was in your package.
Okay, yeah, well, I have that one, okay. I thought you meant you had another one.
So let me tell you what we did to get to where we were. We took everybody's 1920 salary. We applied the 1% raise. That makes sense. So then everybody got a new number. And then we looked on the scale, and whatever number they were closest to, you didn't go down, you got then kind of prorated up to the next one. So some people might have got a 1.7% raise, but everybody got a minimum of 1. Is that a fair way to say that?
That's correct.
If somebody happened to be a first-year teacher, they would have gone up, so they got a big jump because they got moved up to the minimum, if the minimum changes. Now, that's what we had said, as I understand it earlier, is we were going to try to budget that. Now, and then if once we got it plugged in, if you all approve the budget next week or whenever, then I would also ask, if you do have a special call meeting next week, 2 or 3 things, that we would also then approve the new matrix and make that the new matrix. You can see all those are even scales, and we talked about that back all the way in January, I think, going to steps and those kind of things. So, but that's using, what's in your budget proposal is using 40 for a bachelor's, 44 for a master's, and 48 for advanced, anything above that, and then it goes from there.
Does anyone have any changes or things that you would like Dr. Johnson and the Finance Director to change? Or you want to question for if you want them to go back and take a look at it? Is there, do you want us to go and discuss a little bit in depth each category? I guess my question is if we were to wait, is there any guidance that you would like to say, Dr. Johnson, look at this while we wait to come back?
So I think probably, and I don't know that this is the right time to ask this question, but I have a little bit of concern about when and how we begin to use that 2 cents, or $10,000 roughly, that's been given to us by the county commission. So that needs to take place in this. We need to use that school innovation something now, like prior to.
So there's 706-ish is what was budgeted, but we spent something boilers.
Yes.
706, so it's like 554 remains of what was the 706. The 500 we budgeted, this body budgeted last year, plus the 2 pennies.
Right.
And we purposely didn't do anything until we knew the pleasure of the board on regards to if we were going to open, close, build, not do. So then we waited, and then once the decision made not to close, that's when Dr. Arnold and I came up with a list of, let's go ahead and take the Lewis Group list, and that's the list that was in April. And then I put back in there, and I named it this time, and then, Operation Upgrade Phase 1, just so we know, we can separate that from other things. And, so anyways, that's available now. Can we get everything done by June 30? No, but that's an example of whatever we can get done, we can get done, but we would reserve it, it would stay right there in capital, and we'd keep those projects going in July, if the board approves them. That's the pleasure of the board. And that's on the agenda later. That's some couple of members asked to have it put back on. Okay.
So as long as we have approved it,
It's not going anywhere else.
it can be, okay.
Make sure of that.
But it needs to be earmarked for something in this fiscal year, that's correct?
Well, I think because there were others in line asking for 2 pennies when I went and asked for 2 pennies and they gave it to us. I think certainly they would understand we wanted to be good stewards and not spend it on a building, and then if the board had decided to close the building. But now that we know we're not closing, building, they would understand us being good stewards now, but, at the same time, we probably need to get busy. My thoughts are we need to get busy fixing things. Especially with summer coming up and kids not in them right now, even we could get a jump on some things. Thanks for the clarification.
Anybody else have anything about the budget? Thank you. Mr. Potts, Finance Department, I know put a lot of hard work in it, Dr. Johnston and your staff. With everything else that's going on, you got the budget out. Thank you very much.
I apologize for the delay.
No.
It really has bothered me.
We're good. All right.
All right. Normally I can pass them down, but I'm gonna have to walk around tonight.
Oh, God. Just both of them mine or
No,
one coach?
both go down, actually, Miss Fair and Coach. This is just a, kind of an update. Oops.
Did you see it?
Yes, that's why I didn't do it. So, if you look at this is wordy, but in talking, I typed it last week, tweaked it today, you can see it says May 1. Just to give you kind of a backstory of where we are, we're already worried, concerned / planning. I have a meeting Monday morning with several. We're doing it in the cafeteria at the high school, spreading out all over the place to get the academic folks in the room. I'm just being transparent with you. We've got some academic plans in place. Some things that are differentiated for this summer. Again, do all kids do those? No. Do all kids benefit from that if they don't have great home support structures? No. But we're going to try. But you can read this at your leisure. We're looking at some differentiated packets to meet kids where they are based on their Lexile levels and some of those things. In K-8 mainly is what we're talking about. And then in July, we're looking at early academies to help identify kids that we know are going to have gaps because of this extended absence. And then also looking at that first 30 or 40 days of school, what's that going to look like? Now, I say all that to come back and say, the reality is there's still much discussion on when, schools are going to reopen. So we're going to literally be planning for contingencies of what if we don't open till after Labor Day? What if we don't open till January? What if we don't open till fall break? What if we open normal? So we're planning all those things out, including involving technology and improve our readiness. And I won't take the time to go into it, but we've got a plan for all those students that don't have internet access that we can go ahead and preload lessons on their laptops, and then they would have them to where once, if we ever had this situation again, Lord forbid, that we would then just get passwords to them, and when they type in password, it opens up. We now have the ability with technology, we can push out updates to those computers, even if they're not on campus. We had to collect them all and get them all in the same room, and we could do that. So there's a lot going on with the learning part. That's what this COVID-19 update is. We could have called it other things. In the seniors in graduation, you can look there. When you heard rumors about the grades and those things, the state board said whatever grade a child had on March 20th, it cannot be worse than that. Well, we actually had kids that didn't even start their last class because it's 9 weeks, and Ms. Ferris may have a student like that that's 9 weeks, and they didn't even start it. Their first day was going to be March 23rd. So they've had the ability still to earn that credit and those things. But you couldn't go back. We did go back because we felt like it was unfair. Kids that had zeros before that, they didn't have an opportunity to make them up. Normally you would have done that the week after the 9 weeks ends and those things, so we made some corrections there. But when you look at that bold printed, one of the things that was changed was the number of credits required to graduate. Now the policy committee, and we'll get together, you know, we've got time to fix it. We need to look at our hours anyways because we're on block schedule. We need to make sure the policy, the normal graduation policy says what we want it to for 21. But specifically, the state board changed it to 20 credits. They left 4 English, 4 math, 3 science, and reduced social studies from 3 down to 2. And then they waived the requirement for the civics test, end of course, and ACT or SAT for those students. So what that basically does is, it says kids had to have those 13 credits plus any 7 others. Now, everybody's scrambling from this. What's that mean if a kid didn't get economics, and not necessarily one of our kids, but another kid, they didn't get economics, and their college of admissions requiring economics as their prerequisite and those things. So, you know, the colleges are working with that. The good news is for our kids, they still were eligible to get those last 9 weeks classes. Was it as good if they had been in front of a teacher every day? You know, nothing replaces the work of a good, highly effective teacher and coming to school every day. But I appreciate our teachers that have worked hard for that. To help our kids there. So just know that's what the actual requirement was. So if you look at the back then, I thank our folks for trying the best we could do. You know, lots of times we're doing we realize that things that we'll do better. I don't mean it to sound tongue-in-cheek, but we'll be better prepared next time. But I mean, I didn't see the pandemic coming. I know I had since 1918 to be ready for it, but I messed that up. And so with that, we have that information in your packet. If we could suspend some policies that from TSBA that would allow our kids to graduate and move forward. Food distribution, Wednesday, May 20th is our last planned day right now because Thursday is a teacher-only day. And while the board agreed to pay those folks through the last day, Thursday's the admin day, teacher-only, and Friday's a half day. We don't normally serve that day. So Wednesday, May 20th is our last planned day for those things right there. New developments, an eerie conversation to get today. I think school is going to look very different going forward from now on, and I'd love to tell you what it's going to look like, but we don't know. We had discussions today on are we going to socially distance on school buses. So, I mean, what does that do? A bus that's normally full, which most of ours are full, if they have to be every other seat and only one child, but we can't run a bus 5 different times down the same road to get kids. And so there's going to be all sorts of things, but the good news is that won't just be us. As far as good news, we won't be by ourselves. And so, but nobody's giving us guidance on those kind of things. They're even talking about changing class size. Well, that's great. You know, we reduce them. You reduce class size, and that takes twice as many teachers theoretically if you cut your class in half to be able to teach them, or they come half days. One district I've heard is looking at a high school schedule in the fall of seniors and sophomores come Monday, Wednesday, and every other Friday, and juniors and freshmen come Tuesday, Thursday, and every other Friday. School, I think, has changed, at least in the immediate future, drastically. And so, again, this just basically says we'll keep you posted. And everybody's worried about the social, emotional side of that kids' trauma of this and difficult situation. Academics, you know, even we're already worried about, are we going to test next year in the spring if it takes us till October to start, and October to Christmas is just getting kids to where they feel safe. We're going to have kids that have all sorts of issues, and we have teachers that are going to have some, need some support as well because of different things. Even if you've lost a loved one during this, not being able to have a traditional funeral and closure and those kind of things. So just to make you aware, I just wanted to give you that, and as kind of a page, and then again, down at the bottom, if we could pass resolution 2020-71, and that's just for this one year, and that came straight from TSBA minus, you know, a couple of words, but just to make it read easier for everybody. So I just want to give you an update that we're all in uncharted water, and I know that phrase gets used way too much, but we're going to keep doing our best to support our teachers and our kids.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, on here, it's talking about distance learning and academies. You mentioned possibly having an early academy but it also says for K through 8 students. What about high school students, or at least the kids, at the very least, that have IEPs and are behind on a regular basis? I mean, I know that you're meeting on Monday with some staff to look into possibilities, so I would really encourage you to at least think about those kids. Having 6 kids, I have 6 different kids.
Oh, yeah.
So of course, one of mine falls into that group. He's normally behind on a normal basis. We struggle and try and do as much as we can, but you know, he's being affected more so maybe.
Sure.
I'm not, you know, my husband and I, our jobs are considered essential, so we have not been able to be home and homeschool and to follow all of the recommendations that their teachers have given, just because we can't be with them all the time, like I'd love to be. However, the other thing I kind of am wondering about is, are you guys going to consider any kind of like mobile learning, like on like Zoom meetings and stuff in the future as you plan for another possible pandemic? I mean, I know nobody was expecting this, and we kind of make light of it in a way just to take the edge off. But at the same time, growing up, attending school in North Carolina, 2 of my best friends, both husbands are teachers. They have kids in elementary, middle, and high school, and pandemic hit right at spring break, just like ours did. And it took them a week to find out which kids did not have hotspots, mailed them in the mail, and it was clockwork. Monday morning, 8 to 11:30, they're on Zoom class, and it continues. Now, one of the husbands is teaching his class, 8 to 11:30, didn't miss a beat. And here we are, struggling. I mean, yeah, we give out packets, and I'm not saying the effort's not good, but we are struggling. And I really think we need to look, that is what's most important, is educating these kids. And I feel like this year has almost been a waste from, you know, March to who knows when we'll start. Because, you know, I have a problem with taking such a long summer off with kids anyway. That's an argument for a different day, and I know that we've talked about that many times. However, you know, we're really going to be behind. So are we going to have some kind of learning plan in place that maybe utilizes, you know, oh, here we go. For some reason, we've had a hurricane, tornado, blah, 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 fill in the blank. Well, we got to learn at home. Move into that capability. We got to have some kind of plan for that.
I agree, and that's been talked about. Zoom is a two-edged sword. There's an FBI warning about using it for educational purposes. So our technology, we have Teams though, as long as, because all our kids have a JCBOE account and those things. So, but all those things are things. The 9 through 12 we've just not talked to yet, because we're talking about the early literacy and those things. Dr. Boland's on top of trying to deal with that. We all know just statewide we're going to have eventually. When we get them back, we're going to have to. We've got some folks doing Zoom with special education students. We're doing some therapy. We've got one teacher that I think is going to a house and going through the big glass window and having communication and doing. So there's lots of things out there. With 550 of them, I don't know all of them, but the principals I know are doing a good job talking to their teachers and everything. But compensatory, at some point in time, it's called compensatory education. Somebody will have to sit down when we get back to whatever the new normal is and say, okay, here's what we provided, here's what we normally would have if we'd have been in school, and then we address those gaps. But all those are good points, and they're discussion points that we'll have.
I so agree with what Ms. Fair just said, and except I'd like to extend it. I don't really think we've had school from January because we had too many flood days, flu days, every other kind of day. And I mean, I know they went to school a couple of days a week, but when you're just going 2 days here and 2 days and maybe 3 days here, you really cannot, as a teacher, get consistency. And when you're talking about the Zoom, I mean, right around us, we had schools, and they still are. They're teaching from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. All day long they're teaching, every class. But I know our county, we can't do that.
So see, that's my question. Why?
I know,
why
I know.
are we so behind everyone else?
And
A
That's
lot
I,
of it's
able to-
demographics.
That's able to figure it out.
right,
It was a rural county a rural part of the county, very similar to Jefferson City area that I grew up in North Carolina. We were the armpit of the county. And let me tell you, they found out the kids that didn't have hot spots, and in 7 days they had them and they were on point.
Yeah, I understand.
and also, it bothers me, and I know that we will always have, doesn't matter where you are, you're always gonna have bad teachers and you're always gonna have good teachers. I know that. But I have tried to talk to different teachers, and it amazes me how some of our teachers have learned how to do things on Zoom that they've taught themselves. They found the whiteboard. They found how to do it on Zoom. They found how to plug the phone into the, and do all these things. And then there are others that are just reading a book. And I'm not saying that reading a book isn't right, don't get me wrong, but we've got to have some rules that when we're on here, we're teaching. We're still teaching.
So one of the things that wasn't in place that going forward we'll all need to study and develop is those expectations through our contract and those things. Informally, I don't want to go into it tonight, but just remind you, when that first happened, we asked teachers to come in to help us get going, and there was pushback. So I'm just saying, we've dealt with pushback at the certified level, at the classified level, all the way over the last 4 or 5, 6 weeks. So if we had that written down, that's in place, that's the expectation when you start your school year, that's what's going to help us going forward. And I've talked to Carol Baker about that, of what, so we can do it. Now the hotspots, we did provide some hotspots. One of the things we even looked at was taking a hotspot and putting on 8 or 10 buses and taking them and parking them around the county to where at least somebody can drive to that spot and have internet in those things, to try to meet that. I talked to somebody the other day, and I do not remember who it was, but they shared with me, our number is about 60 or 70% they have internet. But if you take this out of the mix, it goes down significantly. They don't have internet at a traditional computer, laptop, those things. They only have internet that way. So it's just all issues that we need to address, want to address going forward. I agree with everything.
We have got to address.
I think.
Now, the hotspots, if the numbers are right, we'd have 3,000 kids that don't have internet. And at $40 a month, then what's the math of 3,000? Your finance guy over there.
But we're getting money that we can use for technology, correct?
You can use it for technology.
Which would also
But then that would
include that.
eliminate the early academy and the other things. So it's just, that's what I'm saying. And we can only sustain it. That's one-time money. And the hotspots would be going back every year recurring. So we just have to balance it out. I agree with you. We want to do.
Mr. Solomon?
I think that, I know school year's about over with, it's, I think we got June, July, and August before school starts. We got about a couple of months there. I think that our staff would get things on board. If we see we ain't having school in August, I think that we got enough leaders of this county to get things started. I think that this has hit them hard. I agree with you all. I understand about education, but I think go forward, I think we'd be right on it. I think they get right on it. And I think that our kids will learn. I really do. We couldn't help what happened, but I just want to say that. I think going forward, we'd be right where we need to be, I hope.
Well, I'm
Thank you,
curious.
thank you. I think we need to move on. It's almost 6:30, and I want to try to hit anything else that's left on our agenda, okay? All right,
Is
thank
this
you.
not a work
Thank you.
session?
Yeah, but there's a lot of other things, Denise.
Well, sure, but we have concerns that we need to talk about, and that is what a work session is for,
Okay.
correct?
But are you saying that you want to do something that would require looking at the budget in a different way?
It's a paper we just received concerning from here on out. I don't think that you can rush something when we're all concerned about it and want to bring it up and talk about it.
Well, I'd like to move on.
Well, that's fine. I think that you should ask and make sure that no one else has a viable comment or wants to continue a discussion before you just cut it off because you want to move on.
All right. What's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to continue the conversation of the COVID updates, or would you like to move on?
I'd like to make one more comment. I hope that there's some way we can put in policy teachers that do not want to teach, that some way it goes on the record.
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Not at this time, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All right, moving on.
This is number 3. I had a couple folks ask me, again, Mr. Cox, if you'll help me here, I want since last meeting, and that's why it was back on there. It's hard on everybody to be on the phone and primarily conduct the meeting. But it was just asked, and this is just from a procedure standpoint, not advocating anything. But what do you do? You have enough, Mr. Cox? So what was the procedure if the board wanted to discuss the items that were delayed? So I'm just going to run down through that procedurally. In order to take that off, or to undo it, basically, there was a motion made to build 2 schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, seconded, and in the motion that's in your minutes was to wait till July. I think Coach made that. So in order, if you want to discuss it before July, somebody, the motion and the second would have to come from one of the 6 that was on the prevailing side. If you get that motion is debatable, but not amendable, according to what I found out with Robert's rules, and it only takes a simple majority. If the motion fails, then the April vote to discuss until July remains in place. If the motion passes, let's move to number 2. So if the board did vote to rescind that and wanted to talk about it either in June or tonight or whatever, the board's now back to the original motion of building 2 schools. And then you would have to be either voted up or down or amended, or the motion, as I understand it, could also be withdrawn from the person that made the motion. So then you're at a point that any new motion could be made. Specifically there at the bottom then deals with, it only was added at first, I think Mr. Solomon started to make a motion, but it ended up not being a motion and just asked to be placed on the July agenda, so you're not bound to do anything there or undo anything. So just a motion and a second would be needed for discussion and possible consideration for approval. And again, I named it on that page just so everybody knew what little page we were talking about. But that's just procedural because I was asked about that. Any questions there?
Ready.
All right. Mr. Potts, I'm going to yield the floor to you on this one. You can talk about this. Ms. Fair had asked us to look up some things. I'm just going to start about half of them right there. Let's see how that goes. Well, I'm trying not to lick my fingers with those pages circulating.
I got an extra one, or not?
I might have given you too many there, Mr.
Is both of them
Yeah,
the
and
same?
Are there 2 sheets or just one?
Just one.
Oh, okay.
Just one. If you look at that, what you have there is,
There's an
Yeah, that's an extra one.
schooling estimated, because some of the time sheets for April aren't in yet. We have people that get paid on the 25th, some get paid on the 30th, and time sheets fall different, and some of these employees too, especially, they get paid in May for what they do in April, and April for what they do in March, and those things. So, Mr. Potts, if you want to kind of take us through what you helped collect there.
Okay, this is in response to the question about potential bonus or incentive or whatever for those that volunteered to work in March, and we broke it out between those 5 categories of school employees, the number of employees that we have in the school system, and the approximate number of hours that were worked during that 2-week to 17-day period.
Okay, so this is March 18 through April 9, before anybody was declared essential.
Before they were declared essential.
I mean, formally by me. The governor technically had already done that.
That's right.
Okay, so that's March, once this all happened on Tuesday, I think March 17, cafeteria workers volunteered. We asked if anybody wanted to, but we knew we were going to try to pay them on through next time this body could meet. We just said that. And then you all affirmed that at your meeting in April. but we kept up with how many hours still people came. But we took volunteers. Mainly you're talking about, maintenance has pretty much been there every day. Custodians worked several days initially and then went on. I mean, it's been very different schedules. The cafeteria workers are the primary ones that were March 18th or 19th. They might have worked that Thursday, Friday of spring break to get ready. And then for that 2 weeks before the board met, before Good Friday through April 9th. So I just gathered the hours up and, you know.
Did you find out from any other counties? Like
Some-
what
some
they are
counties
planning
were-
on doing?
Some counties were planning on, not in the last 2 weeks, but they were planning on giving a stipend. Then it came back in some of their meetings that they were having similar issues. Wait a minute, they're getting paid anyways compared to some of the other folks that are coming in. And then there's also, well, it's on here, office. So some were giving stipends, some were just paying $1 or considering looking more, $1 a day, $1 an hour more and those kind of things. But I can go back and check again to verify what they finalized doing. But a lot of places ran into a snag in what they wanted to do versus what they could physically do.
I received some feedback also through my office, and it was all over the board.
That's what I said last time.
All over the board. Anywhere from get your regular pay to there were some bonuses with.
Out of these salaries or employees, how many are on full-time? Isn't all cafeteria workers on full-time?
There's a few that are 5.5 hours, and does that still
That's
come out?
part-time.
There are a handful of part-times.
Yeah, that would come out.
But one of the things we had to watch too from employment laws was even if they were coming in and working, now I'm not talking about during that time they were volunteering afterwards, we had to make sure they didn't work more than they're allowed to, because that gets us into having to offer various things, benefits of full-time employees. And Ms. Snightman, would thank her for her work there, and Ms. Johnson, Food Services, and then the principals. But it's been different.
Okay, next on the,
Well, this is one that's just a correction, Mr. Cox, you're gonna be sore for standing up.
You
I've
could
done well at that. We got one of those that's working.
everything I want. Here we go.
All right. If you look in your agenda, all this is a correction in your packets. There is a list of textbooks, as I understand it. I was handed this literally right before we came over today. Is yours highlighted? Is yours copy highlighted? If you come up 4 from the bottom, it says Cengage Forensic Science Fundamentals and Investigations, 3rd Student Edition. The price is $1 different than what's in your pack per book. But if y'all know Ms.
Up or
Fincham,
down?
what do you know? We're gonna get that fixed. So, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Like I said, I'm looking for it here. But she does such a great job, we appreciate it. But that's, I think that's number 4 in new business maybe. And it's right behind that form that Ms. Potts signed.
yes,
Did you find it?
I've got it in order, give me just a second.
I think we got one form turned sideways and one, I might have to get Rhonda, but it's $1 difference.
So has that dollar been corrected in the budget already?
There's enough in that line item currently. to cover
Okay,
that.
okay.
I don't even see that one, so that's 920. These are replacements. We'll get Rhonda in here before you vote on it. We'll try to get clarification, or I'll text her in between. So with that said, Ms. Fair's already mentioned CARES Act. Some of the things we're looking at is behavioral supports there. Again, that's the largest cry from our teachers, and with this all happening, and I listened to an hour and 15 minutes today of all the different issues that they're expecting our students and teachers to have after this type, they use the word trauma, and the technology and other things. So, lastly then, I guess that's where, unless the policy committee was sent in an email, the same policy y'all got on 4.700, where Mr. Cox asked for that one sentence to be clarified. I don't know if, the pleasure of the committee, but it's on your agenda to be considered with that updated sentence. And then those second readings. On 5.303, what we have is teachers can have either 3 or 4 personal days, depending on how long they've been here. But they can only let 2 of them roll to sick days. So the question's been asked, is this board going to let them just lose those days? Because obviously some teachers were waiting to plan on taking them later in the year, a couple of them later in the year. And so I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just asking if you all want to allow that to happen. Do other departments in the county side allow anything like that? Or what is, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I have a question. I read that 4 times. I just couldn't understand it. Are you saying that a teacher is saying they had 2 sick days during this spring that they didn't get to use, and can they roll them over to next year?
They have 4 personal days. They get a sick day a month.
Right.
That's over here.
Right.
If they use 2 personal days and have 2 at the end of the year, those become sick days.
Right.
At the end of the year, they roll over to sick days. Am I
Right.
saying that correct?
That's correct.
But if they only had used 1 when COVID hit, they're saying they're going to lose 1. Or if they hadn't used any, they would lose 2. So, I'm just the messenger. HR asked me to ask that. Ms. Carroll's watching live, I'm sure. Again, it's out there. It's at the pleasure of the board.
So we would have to suspend the rules, or do we just,
You got time to do it first reading tonight, second reading there, or suspend it, or override it, or something. Does that put finance in a bind to track that, Mr. Fox?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Said that with such confidence. Makes us feel.
yeah.
I still
Surprised
don't
by the question.
understand it.
I don't think it's difficult.
Well, I agree.
I'm sorry, I don't
How could they get
understand.
4 personal days? When did that happen?
I don't know.
I think they've all had several personal days and several sick days since we,
Next year.
Well,
That
I
they've been-
retired,
that they've been
like
paid
you
for.
said, 1 sick leave day a month, 10. And there's 2 personal days, if he didn't use them, they became sick leave days. And that took care of it, but when did they go to 4 personal days?
Based
I've
on
been
this
on the board
policy,
since 2010, and I don't remember before.
I'd say November 15th, 2012, based on that policy. To me.
And I
You
was
done.
asleep at the wheel, and I guess, I don't know.
And that's so again, maybe it sounds like not only, I don't know the pleasure, but whatever you decided tonight, either way, let's take 5.303 back to the board for look and consideration. I mean, the policy committee.
Yes.
Ms. Fair, Ms. Crington, and Cook.
Okay,
All right.
great.
But they kind of already really got to use all those days, right?
and a few more.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Last,
Sorry.
I think lastly,
Said that out loud, but.
And we're,
all right, so I just wanted you to know and be an advocate. I know y'all got some calls, and I think some folks have signed up for addresses. We are going to allow them to come when y'all get ready to start the meeting, one at a time to the door area, because that's technically a separate room. But this COVID has made it hard for citizens to be able to express concerns. I did get an email last night, and I've got about 12. I've responded to them all yesterday, except one that came back a second time. And this one just says, concerned and wants to have a traditional graduation. And then they submitted the 600+ signatures on the petition. I wanted to sign it myself. I want them to have one. Really, to be honest with you. Folks signed it everywhere from Toronto to Los Angeles to Miami. And, but I wanted you to know that they have used an internet petition to basically say delay graduation. So I'm just going to take you through some of the thought process of where we were on that. And then, 1, we've not ruled anything out. 2, our fear all along has been if you kick things down the road too much and then you're not able to have it then, they end up without anything. I think Science Hill is also doing a similar thing to what we're doing. We do care about our seniors. We care about all our kids, but we care about our seniors. We want them to have something. But at the same time, I'm not criticizing any other districts for what they're doing, because what I've found in the last week is no matter what plan's announced, there are people concerned with that plan. Knox County announced a plan yesterday, and there was an outcry. Cleveland announced a plan 3 weeks ago to have 2 graduation ceremonies on the same day, one at 4, one at 7, divide them up. And that's been changed now and just delayed to later in the summer. My fear again is what happens next. So we want to continue to have what we have planned, and then let's evaluate and see what's going forward and see what we need to do. The Expo Center, I think, normally costs our high school $3,500, but it's only that cheap because you go in with 6 or 7 other schools, and it takes quite a bit of work for them to get that done. I think East, West, Cobb County, Granger County, plus the nursing and the normal things at Walter State of graduation. So again, we're probably not ever going to all agree on what we could do. The reality is, if they're talking about social distancing on buses, I talked to Chuck Cagle with TOSS today about something else, and just happened to mention to him, what's he hearing around the state, and he just shared that, we're all over the place in that way. I talked to another district on the other side of Knoxville, and they've announced a day in May, and I talked to their director, and he said the reality is we don't have all the details worked out, but we put a date out there. I had emailed earlier today, just before we started here, I'd asked earlier today for a list of kids, senior kids, from some high school faculty members, and try to get a good representation of those that may be in CTE and honors and welding, not welding, but athletics and clubs and those things. So I've emailed about 7 kids to invite them to have a video conference with me Tuesday morning, just to talk with them and hear them and hear from them. I know some of the emails expressed concern that we hadn't polled anybody. That's one that we normally would do, but the reality was I felt like we knew what the poll would be. Everybody wants to have a traditional graduation, including myself, the high school administration, and everybody. So we should have communicated better. One problem was we released it to our media friends, and I was sitting down to do a call to notify parents, that would go out about the time they were all getting off work. I try to be respectful of that and try not to do them before 4 o'clock unless it's snowing real bad in Chestnut Hill. We got to get out of school earlier than that and that kind of stuff. But and then I got sidetracked with a couple of things in that call wasn't able to go out to 8 or 9 o'clock. And, so I'll own that. But certainly I'm a kid person. I mean, we care about kids, and I know this board does. Y'all shared concerns tonight academically and those things. So that's where we are. That one district did tell me they've announced a date. They don't have the plans worked out. They're looking at 2 services, possibly 3. Cannon County is graduating tonight in their not old, I think they still use it, but their drive-in movie theater, and there's a stage up front, and they're putting it on the drive-in, and they're calling kids up 10 at a time to come across the stage, and nobody's allowed out of their cars. Oak Ridge, I read, started graduating this week, 1 family at a time, and cleaning the room after everybody comes through. We were compared to another district, another system that's going to have an outside graduation at the end of May, and I asked how many seats they had. There's stadium seats, 5,000 plus a few others. That's 5,000 seated, not counting standing room. Ours is closer to 2 and those things. So I just want this board to know that caring about kids and their families matter to me, and that we're in a difficult situation. We're going to still have the virtual, and then we'll evaluate things in a few weeks. But again, I think no matter what date you pick, you're subject to say, well, I can't be here this day, and those kids and those things. So we're doing our best, but I certainly want these people that are going to come share with us and all the others to know that we care about them. It's just there's no win. When I'm sitting in a meeting literally at 11 o'clock today, and they're talking about uncertainty of opening school and reducing class size and uncertainty of the next 3 or 4 months. I've heard unofficially that we could even be more guidance that the governor's going to go back and ask all of us to have virtual meetings through the end of June. Again, I can't confirm that. That is totally just somebody told me that at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So again, I just wanted to mention it and let you know that I did have, and I'll be happy to share and give copies or anything, forward you the email, but it just is an email, and some of the emails were nicer than others. Some of them were personal. When all this started, I actually had to get the sheriff involved with an email that I received a month ago that threatened my family and those things. So, I just ran it by him to make sure that, that's where we were. So that's just the world we're in right now, but we want to be respectful, and I want everybody to know we care about the kids and them. So, Just want to share that.
Thank you. I'm sure it's been very stressful.
Just part of it.
Yep. All right, another day. Is there anything else in the work session that we need to talk about on the agenda? Anything else anybody would like to bring up? All right, good. It's 10 till 7. Do you all need to take a break, or are you ready to just move right on into the business section? Ready to roll? All right. We'll get to where I need to be. Let's definitely stand for a moment of silence. And Ms. Farrell, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to add or delete? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Is there a second?
Okay.
Thank you, Coach. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes unanimously. Unfortunately, we don't have any recognitions tonight. It's always a good way to start our meetings. Items for discussion, public input. I believe there is. Got a list? Okay, great. And Ms. Potts. First on the list is Misty Nichols, graduation plans.
What's the time?
Just a proxy.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hi,
Miss,
my name is, I've talked to you, Mr. Solomon. My name is Misty Nichols. I've emailed probably every one of you all.
wait, can you turn your microphone on? We can't hear you very well. Just push the button there now. And if you would state your
Is
name.
that better?
Yes,
Misty
state
Nichols,
and your address, please, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
2216 Rainbow Lane, Newmarket, Tennessee, 37820.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of my son. His name is Samuel. He's a senior at Jefferson County. He has a 4.2 GPA. He's had 4 years of perfect attendance. He's been in band all 4 years. He's been in Beta Club, and he will get a work ethic diploma. I'm asking that you reconsider graduation plans and delay them where they can have a proper graduation. I think it can be done safely with minimal guests. The disease is low in our county. We're blessed on that matter. We've had 1,013 tested, only 26 positive, and we only have 10 active cases right now. Our state is reopening with Governor Lee's support. Stores, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, they're all open, they're busy, their parking lots are full. We're going to be opening salons and spas. You can get a tattoo, you can go bowling, and putt-putt. I read an article in the Citizens Tribune that we sunk $2.4 million into our stadium to improve it. We changed the logo, we removed the Patriot and put JC, and a direct quote from Mr. Shane Johnson, it was to represent everybody in Jefferson County. We are Jefferson County. We need to use that stadium for our graduating class of 2020. Mr. Johnson stated in his announcement that it would take the entire field for the graduates, and it would be limited on the amount of people that could come, maybe just 2 per student. Use the entire field. I beg you. Use the track. You can have parents on a roster. They can have assigned seating. Students can be grouped in small groups of 10 with an adult leader to keep them separated. Mask and hand sanitizer can be used. If you don't have educators that want to volunteer, I guarantee you have parents that will volunteer to help keep these kids safe so they can graduate properly. Another option I thought of was Carson Newman's football field. The capacity of Carson Newman's stadium is 6,500. That would allow more social distancing, even with limited audience. I pulled the policy on graduation activities for the school board. Number 9 said graduation ceremonies shall be physically accessible to all students, their parents, guardians, and other interested citizens. Number 2 says if extenuating circumstances exist at any school, the matter shall be presented to the board prior to graduation activities. I'm asking the board to take this matter on and give our kids a proper graduation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Next is Mary Rucker. Do they have a voice line? They do, yeah. Thank you.
My name,
Excuse me, if you'll just state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
my name is Mary Rucker. My address is 1322 Sager Road, Dandridge, Tennessee, and that's all I had to say. Right?
That's all. Thank you very
Sorry,
much.
I'm really
That's
nervous.
okay.
I think that all seniors deserve a proper graduation because I worked 13 years to get where I am now, and I didn't have my mother behind me to support me, didn't have my father. The only person I really have is a handful of people, and I think I've earned the right to walk across that stage and say I did it on my own. I did it without anybody behind me, and now I feel like that right's being taken away from me. And people are complaining about us not doing our work. Well, why should we do our work if we're not going to get what we're fighting for? Why should we do our work if we're not going to get to walk across the stage? That's what we're doing our work for, is to get to that moment, and we're not even getting that. Why would I want to turn in work if I'm not going to get what I'm doing the work for? I've had a handful of people say, I'm proud of you. I want to be able to walk across that stage and say, I'm proud of myself. So I think that if you really take into, Governor Lee, we're opening everything else up. We can still social distance at a high school graduation, no problem. We're not asking for it now. We don't care about prom. That's already been stripped away from us. We're just asking for the right to walk across that stage and say, we did it. And that's all I gotta say.
Thank you very much. Next is Kim Hawkins. Kim, if you'll state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Kim Hawkins. My address is 1206 Country Club Road, Dandridge, Tennessee, 37725. Thank you for hearing me. I want you all to know that I am not here in my professional capacity. I'm here as a parent. I want you all to know that I got involved because I had parents calling me sobbing, begging. They feel like they are voiceless, so I feel called to represent those who feel voiceless. I know that you all as board members were not involved in this decision, and I don't know who the wizard behind the curtain is that made the decision, but what I want the board to do is get involved in this decision and to please reconsider it. At this time, give the parents and students a voice. You see, other counties are having their graduations. Graduation is so important for all of our students, and many of our most productive student citizens are choosing to enter the workforce directly, and this will be the only graduation those kids will ever have. These kids have lost so much. Prom, gone. Girls soccer, gone. Baseball, gone. Softball, gone. Track, gone. Senior awards night, gone. Senior skip day, gone. Yearbook signing day, gone. Senior prank, gone. Although we might be appreciative of that one. But the list goes on. These kids left for spring break and never went back. They never got to say goodbye to their friends. There's no telling what kind of psychological or emotional repercussions they will experience due to this loss. I mean, I know we're all experiencing it together, right? Just going to the grocery store is a challenge. But the times are uncertain, and these kids need closure. Think back on your graduation. It was what you looked forward to. And at that moment, you had closure on your childhood. You had the beginning of your journey into adulthood. We all did. What would it hurt to reconsider graduation? That's just what I'm asking. The one call that went out sounded like the football stadium was considered and thrown out because it would take the entire stadium to seat the seniors. So, and only 2 guests could attend per student. So, and that's not what we're getting with virtual graduation. We don't even get to go to the high school with our kid and watch our kid walk across the stage. Parents are devastated. The other reason was about not, or it would leave out our students who are commissioning into the military. I'm extremely proud of our students who commission to the military and they serve our country, and we need to honor them. In fact, these students are fighting for the very kind of society that we live in that allows us to have a graduation. It seems we should have a small ceremony to commission these students and celebrate their commissioning immediately. And if graduation is delayed after their departure, we can honor them by projecting their image during our ceremony. Our military students love our country and our high school. And I don't believe they would want our high school graduation suspended because they're serving their country. In fact, I believe if they were asked, not one person would say, I don't want Jefferson County High School to have a graduation later in the summer because I entered the military. What other venues were considered?
I'm sorry, but your time.
Was it Smoky Stadium? We have so many open fields in this country, and it seems we could do something. I just implore you, if whoever is in charge of graduation could revisit the planning process and consider important stakeholder input. And by stakeholders, I mean the parents and the seniors. I know that graduation planners would have ideas to consider that they didn't think of on their own.
I'm sorry, but your
Other
time's
counties
up.
are having their graduation, and right now out of this courthouse, there's a host of students and parents, more students than parents. Okay. Thank you for your time, and thank you for considering and giving everyone a voice. I appreciate you all.
Next is Leah Smith. They're telling him to. Okay.
Hello,
Hi, Leah.
my name is Carly Murphy. My address is 334 Antler Ridge, Dandridge, Tennessee. I'm currently a senior at Jefferson County High School. I've talked to many of the people in this room before, actually one-on-one. And I just wanted to say that I know a lot of people, there are a lot of seniors that do have a voice, even though they are afraid or a little kind of scared to come in here and talk to all of you. And I've actually come up with points, and I've thought about this quite a bit, but I'm not in here with like a written speech or with anything super planned out. And I understand that this is a lot higher than me and a lot higher than a lot of the other seniors that don't decide to speak up. But we would like a graduation. And I understand that a virtual graduation would be easier and maybe even safer. But we believe that if other counties can take that chance and other counties have the ability to at least do maybe a graduation separate or a graduation to a later date. I know a school in Louisiana that's still deciding to have their graduation in August, even though they have more cases than we have here. So it just hurts to think that we don't get that chance. I'm a senior who was a part of everything. So I did get to talk to a lot of the different kids and a lot of different social groups that we have at Jefferson County High School. I was a part of the art club. I was a part of the digital design some. I helped out with the football management system. I was in theater. I was in choir. I was in ROTC. I plan on going to the National Guard. My sign-out date is actually September 14th. So, and I've always been that kid who wasn't afraid to say something. And I know this is really hard, and it doesn't really seem like it because I'm all jittery. But on behalf of a lot of the other seniors that don't get a chance to speak, or don't feel like they have a right to, or like they really have a voice, I just know a lot of us would think that we at least deserve that chance. Sir, you said in your email that one of the biggest things was that we don't know the summer plans. And that's right. Seniors don't know the summer plans either, because some people say that it might get worse. Some people say that it might get better. So if you say it gets worse, then there are even some seniors or some grandparents that won't get a chance to see their kid graduate at all, because they could get what is really going on and the whole reason behind all of this closing, and the fact that we don't even get our last seniors you have been dismissed day, or our last time to write how our senior year felt, or how all the 4 years have made us feel different. But we'll never get that, and we understand that. But we know that, considering other counties have at least tried to give us that one day where we get to say goodbye. We get to say, I'll never get to see you again because you're going in the military, or you're going here, or you're going to decide to go somewhere else. And I know my time's up, so I just wanted to say that even with those that are in the military, I have a friend leaving May 24th. We could still honor them on that day that they were supposed to go. So I just wanted to say, please just think about the hearts of those that you're affecting, because some of us don't get to say goodbye. And we'd at least consider taking the chance for us to say goodbye, even though we didn't get those last 2 months.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've got Frankie Estep or Leah Smith, I don't know.
That's Frankie.
Is that Frankie?
That's Frankie.
That is Frankie. So my name is Frankie Estep. My address is 112 Jeremiah Lane, Dandridge, Tennessee. So I'd first like to start by thanking you all for your time here today. And Dr. Johnston, I'm sure that it suits you well that you were able to discuss all the topics that we're coming here today to discuss before we were able to take a stand. But you just proclaimed that you were a kid person. And if that were true, I feel that there could have been some way to involve the voices of your kids in this decision-making process. As patriots, we've been told since the first day at the Patriot Academy that our voice matters, and standing up for what we believe in is the Patriot way. And on April 28th, I realized that during the unexpected end of the school year and all of the things going on during this uncertain time, our voices were silenced as well. I read the article from the Citizen Tribune, and I was shocked to see the administration from surrounding counties take into consideration the voices of their seniors, and then to see our administration make a decision with seemingly little thought to the graduating class really left me unsettled after being taught the Patriot way for nearly 4 years. On behalf of everyone standing outside, I would like to strongly encourage you to rethink the decisions that we've made for the graduating class of 2020. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I guess that's it.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Rhonda. All right, moving on. We've gone over the director's report pretty thoroughly. Anybody else? We'll move on for items for information. We have the financial report for March. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Johnston or the finance director about the report? Wayne?
I just want to reiterate the thing about the local sales tax. We're ahead of last year by about 8%. We're going to watch that very closely. If that changes, we will let you know, but we don't think there's a risk to missing our budget on that item for this year.
Under,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, under the items for information, the second one is just for if the board wants to do something with that, that's the quote-unquote operation upgrade or those things.
Okay, and approval of the federal program summary, is that anything we need to talk about here, or is it on?
Now, by law, we have to give you a list and just, it's literally everything that's in the budget. So Title I, consolidated, Title II, Title III, Title III, it's just, you have to say that you're aware that that's how we're spending the 142 money is in those areas. So we have to disclose that to you.
Anything, anybody have any comments about public chapter 652?
I thought everybody would enjoy that reading, so I thought I'd put that in there. Take a little while.
All right, seeing none. Moving on, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Mr. Cox. Is there a second?
I second, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries unanimously. Next is...
Madam Chair, may I ask what time the special call meeting is that we just voted on for April 9th?
It's the one that we had on the telephone.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'd have to
Excuse
go-
me, no, that's fine. No, I'm sorry, I'm looking at something else.
All right. Anything else?
No, no.
Okay. Moving on to committee reports, policy committee, for first reading, 4.700, testing programs. Do I hear a motion to approve? Thank you, Mr. Cox. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Jarnigan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving policy 4.700, testing programs, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes unanimously. Next is approving several policies on second reading. I'm not going to list all those. Do I hear a motion to approve these policies on second reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries unanimously. Excuse me. Okay, Resolution 2020-71, COVID-19 suspension of policies. I believe Dr. Johnson has talked about that. Do I hear a motion to approve Resolution 2020-71? Thank you, Mr. Cox. Is there a second?
So,
Thank you, Mr. Jarnigan. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries unanimously. Under new business, we've got our budget amendments. Mr. Potts, do you have anything to say about these?
Well, the descriptions are pretty self-explanatory, but none of those use fund balance.
Do I hear a motion to approve these four budget amendments?
I move to approve the full budget amendments.
Thank you, Ms. Pinkerton. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes unanimously. All right, we're to the 2020-2021 budget. We just received it today. It is on the agenda. We can ask to have a special call meeting to approve it, or whatever y'all want to do.
We had to have 2 readings, correct, Madam Chair? Or we want
What?
to pass it? We have to have 2.
No,
Oh,
we
just
can
one.
pass it on
Okay.
one time. And we would need to meet next Thursday in order to get it ready for county commission on the 18th.
So we're moving number 2 to next Thursday, is that?
Well, I'm at a
We
pleasure of the
hadn't
board.
heard anything yet.
I have no problem with the
We
budget.
can vote.
And I see no
Excellent job of balancing.
changes needed.
Are you making a motion?
If we make a motion, that means we have to meet again next week, or we'll,
No, if you're making a motion to approve the
I'll make a
budget.
motion to accept the budget as presented.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Pinkerton. So the motion's been made, it's been properly seconded. Mr. Jernigan, you have anything you want to say about it?
Don't have anything, that 391,000 is all that comes out of our fund balance, to budget, to balance our budget as
Yes, sir.
presented. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Pinkerton?
I just, only thing I would say is thank you to Mr. Potts and Dr. Johnston and all his staff that worked on it so hard. I can't imagine how many hours they put into it.
A lot.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments about the budget?
Well done, thanks.
I appreciate that, the board had passed that we wanted a balanced budget, that we wanted increases for all our classified and certified, that we wanted to get to a $40,000 beginning salary, and it was met. I appreciate that a lot. It means a lot to me personally to get to that level, and I'm really glad to see it for our school system. Any other comments? Seeing none, are you ready to vote to approve the 2020-2021 budget for programs 141, 142, 143, and 177 as presented? Oh, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Excuse me, I got confused. All right, the motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Just for a minute, there's not a 177, if that matters. in what
Oh,
you-
well, okay, it's on my piece of paper.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Approval of federal programming and special education. I believe this is what Dr. Johnson had said, that all the programs that we receive funding for, there have been listed. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes unanimously. Got the textbook adoption for 2020-2021. That one's hurts.
This is painful. This is painful.
Is there a motion?
Actually, you've already spent the money a minute ago. We just need you to approve the books now.
Is there,
taken.
yeah, is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Mr. Cox. Is there a second? Thank you, Coach.
Point of clarification, Rhonda, the $1 adjustment, was it $1 more or $1 less?
She didn't tell me. She didn't tell me. She said there's $1 difference.
Fired.
Okay. I mean, the money's budgeted,
You
even.
said more.
He's quitting anyway.
I'll fire her June 30th.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the textbook adoption for 2020-2021, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes unanimously. Next item is under unfinished business is the motions from the April meeting concerning 3A and 3B scenarios.
I don't know the appropriate way to, can I speak? May I speak?
Yes.
Madam Chair? I don't know the appropriate way to proceed with this, but, we've been blessed with some money from county commission, and I think, we've got plenty of list of things that we can be actively working on, with that money, so I don't know that we need to wait until July and open this back up. Is there a motion that can be made so that, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
Is there a motion that can be made so that we can begin to utilize the funds that have already been earmarked for these renovations so that we can begin to work on these renovations?
Okay, so in April, we did not pass a motion on the capital outlay. It was
Okay.
just a verbal post-5,
Gotcha,
okay?
gotcha.
So there's no motion tied to that concept. So at any point, you can make a motion to approve that list, update 1, phase 1 that Dr. Johnston has, or, you know, that's part of this April concerning 3A and 3B.
Is this the paper we're talking about?
Yes, it is.
And that was exactly the same from April. Didn't think for April 2nd.
Does a motion have to be made before we can discuss the list?
Yes, it
I
does.
make the motion on that.
Okay.
Go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Ms. Fair. So Mr. Solomon makes the motion to approve the Operation Upgrade Phase 1. Okay? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Pinkerton. Mr. Solomon, do you have any discussion?
I think since we got some downtime, we can get in there and start working on our priority school, like the Lewis group came back, and we can start fixing some things and get it ready for the school year when it opens back up. The money's there, and I think it shows good effort on us to spend that money and show county commission we are trying to get our priorities, how they design it to get fixed.
Okay. Mrs. Pinkerton, do you have anything?
I agree, the sooner we start, the better we are.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments about the motion to approve the Operation Upgrade Phase 1 list?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Fair?
I see that there are several schools on here that need security work, which we said that security was our #1 priority, and we should be getting some federal money for security, correct?
Safe schools money. We get some of that annually, yes.
Okay. My question is, why is Jefferson Elementary, JMS, and Jefferson Academy left off the list for security upgrade? I thought we had discussed about possibly putting some kind of guard shack there at the entrance, something to keep those 3 schools that are all in one small space, give them some kind of security. Why do we not have them on there?
Okay, I think Mr. Cox came here and stole my page or something, I can't find it, but anyways,
What do you think?
no, the page she's talking about. All right, so let's start Jefferson Elementary. Remember when this came up initially, it was tied to the scenario, if, at the pleasure of the board, that they came up with 3A, and then we just I labeled it 3B. So we didn't jump in to do things at JES and PES in the event that the board chooses to do something there. That list does give everybody something. Now again, you're talking about, we're in May 7th, and you're only talking about 60 more days. That those could very well be the priorities when we get the 500 come July 1 in phase 2 as well. So what we try to do is not spend any money on buildings that were being discussed about for possible new or something like that, so we didn't undo. Patriot Academy is the only, no wait a minute, Patriot Academy, as I recall, only had some roofing and then security fence. And I had emailed the board at one point in time saying, what's going to be our philosophy? Do we want to have enclosed campuses? Because unless you put a guard out there, and I think you and I even talked about that in a meeting one day, unless you put a guard out there, that doesn't really keep anybody out. What it does is keep everybody in. If you ever had an event, you need to close the gate and lock down your campus that way without the guard. So that's certainly something we can look at, going forward as well, or at the pleasure of the board to amend it to include that. But I don't know what Mr. Cox did with my, thank you, Ms. Rhonda. Mr. Cox stole mine. I'm just kidding, Mr. Cox. But as you can look down the left, it was an attempt to take the Lewis Group's list, and at least going down this list, everybody's going to get something with the exception, I want to say, of Patriot Academy. Let me count. And I think that is right, campus-wise. So, but again, we can add it, subtract it. And if you look there, those are just, we have quotes, we don't have official estimates. If all the quotes come in pretty close when we actually have to bid some of this out and get going, we'll still have 174 that we could designate at the pleasure of the board for any of those projects out of this, not counting what we're about to add 500 in July.
So
Is there perimeter fence, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
is there perimeter fence around that entire piece of property, or is it just on the front side and then up, Jefferson Elementary, Jefferson Middle
Okay.
School.
It's just the,
So it's the front and up the side road.
Front
yeah,
and
and
side till you get to the
then
house.
there's that back preschool and kindergarten playground area, of course, has it on the back.
Okay.
And then you got the fairgrounds, so.
And it ties it into the stadium, so when you
So
go,
it's between there and the.
when you go in the
funeral
road
home,
between
then it's
the
not.
nursing home and the
Right.
campus.
And then, of course, the actual entrance,
That's correct.
which is,
Now Jeff Middle ends on 11A.
Right.
It doesn't have anything between the funeral home and it, and then back around that.
But it's what, so
But we had talked, what she referred to, we had talked about at one point in time, fencing that, possibly a guard shack, and then that's additional salary to have a security guard out there full-time, because right now we don't have one there all the time, but we talked about that. And,
Mr. Baloo is not there all the time. Where does he go after he directs traffic in the morning?
There's 3 security guards, and they split up, I'd have to look, but I can answer it for you, just have to look it up, but they work the morning, and then the dismissal, and then they also work first and second shift at the high school's campus. That schedule's been in place. I forget even, Langdon, do you remember, they're listed, even in the budget, I have to go look for them, because there's number 1 on one of the categories. It may be an operation, you mentioned it may be an operation flank, but we talked about that, because with all the video cameras as well at the high school, really, you want to go down and not have as many hours of coverage at the high school late into the night when you've got cameras, and you could take one of those people if we had gotten to that point of doing that. But the main reason there in the bottom left was, it got dropped because initially that was being considered, when this was all typed, there was discussion about possibly construction.
Mhm.
But we have 2 of our, you mentioned Patriot Academy, which isn't on the list, but you mentioned that it's in need of roof repair. It and Mount Harbor are 2 newest schools, and they both need roof repair.
I don't think, I'd have to get my Lewis Group book, the Mount Horeb does, and it's got, but it's mainly from damage of individuals or repair guys, puncture marks, and those have been, and we've already been addressing, pardon the pun, the punch hole list of getting those knocked out. But there's a, yes, Mount Horeb's had a roof issue, but not structurally, just, and then their issue in the Lewis Group report, see, that's not even on this, the Lewis Group report just came up with their stormwater runoff. It's, we've spent thousands of dollars to be able to have school each day with the wet season. The stormwater drain and the school are so close to level, it doesn't run off. All it takes is one good rain and our pump up there is underwater. So we're having to pay to have it pumped. So that's what that is to try to fix that. Mr. Arnold's got quotes on a lot of those.
Any other discussion about the motion to approve the operation upgrade phase 1?
So one final one for me, please. The fencing that it was required to close in that small campus of schools, or larger campus of schools, I guess, in Jefferson City. Have we got any quotes on?
We have one that's a little over a year old. We need to get it again, but it was, I want to say 23-ish. To take what's already there and go in.
Just tie into it.
Yeah, that's not including, like Ms. Fair said, if we put a gate out, I mean, not a gate, a shack, so we're going to Lowe's to buy either a building or build one out there in that triangle and those things.
It's also something that could be looked at, because we're going to have capital outlay money, we're going to have fund balance, and we're going to be looking at all of the schools again to do a phase 2. So just because it might not be on list for phase 1 doesn't mean that it's going to be not accomplished. It just happened that this was the items that they got the quotes on and they looked at. But there is money coming up. It was just a matter of, like you said, using the money that was in our current budget and getting some projects done during the summer season.
Right.
Some
I
of
would like to
these,
investigate that cost though for.
sure.
Future use.
I can try to have that, but Jim, just an estimate of what that would be to do that. But like on some things on this are what, like changing those security entrances are kind of a major project. But duct cleaning, they're real proud of that service based on some of it. You would think $40,000 would clean a lot of ducts. They don't even get duct cleans. I mean, that's very few classrooms, but we've got to start doing that. We have so many kids with allergies and mold issues and those things, ductwork, those type issues we want to do. Like flooring, we're always going to have every year. If we can get on a rotation where we're replacing the carpet or the tiles in the X amount of classrooms, try to get back ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm. Name of the
Right
game.
now, not get ahead, just catch up.
That's right.
Either, and that's the name of the game.
Okay.
I mean, is there a way that we could go forward with the understanding that the next round of money that we get, Piedmont and Jefferson Elementary at the top of the list? Because if we do not approve new schools, which you guys know about how I feel about that, I don't want them to get left out somehow.
I can bring back something even in June, even with the money that's, we estimate to be left out of this initial. And again, and at least have an estimate on the security fence there and take Piedmont's top 1 or 2 list and just at least come back with an idea of what that money is and whether we decide to use, and again, whatever we don't spend on this by June 30, Mr. Fox verified, will be rolled to add to the 500 that's in there this year. So we'll make it happen, if that's the pleasure of the board. I would
I'm still
appreciate
waiting
that.
on my cross-country trail to be made happen too, Dr. Johnson.
Okay,
Still waiting on that.
That's great.
good. Is,
I got that in the
are we ready to
paper.
vote?
Promised to me.
All those in favor of the motion to approve Operation Upgrade Phase 1, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Jernigan?
in our April meeting, we had a motion, and I voted for the motion to delay the phase building of the 2 new schools till July. And I understand that if we wait till July, we're gonna be losing a lot of time. And I'm gonna make a motion to rescind that motion from April, delaying the building of new schools construction.
All right, so Mr. Jernigan, you've made the motion.
To rescind the motion made in April.
To rescind the April motion postponing the discussion of the new school construction until July.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so that's the motion. Is there a second?
I second it, can I second?
Okay, yes, Mr. Solomon, you voted in favor of it. Mr. Jernigan, do you want to elaborate?
I understand if we wait a couple, 3 months, we're gonna be waiting about a year before in other words, it would delay us a year.
Okay.
Is there any, yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Solomon.
I got a question for Mr. Fox on this. How is our, if we go through with this, how is our money wise and how you look the numbers? Or I know we ain't got to, that be good to do this at this time. I think it would because it's time to build ready, this time of area. And people, how is our financial, what I'm trying to say?
You mean to be able to fund
Yes.
renovation
Ours.
of the school? So, the thing we talked about last time was our debt service. We have some debt that's coming off over the next few years. Pretty substantial chunks of money that are coming off. So, it's possible we could do some renovations or some new schools without a tax increase. In other words, that funding of that would fall into those gaps where we're paying off the debt. So that our debt service would not have to increase, or debt service payments would not have to increase, and you potentially not have to add to the current balance. I'm not sure I explained it very well, but there's a possibility that we could get most of, or maybe all of it, if we do it and don't do it all at one time.
And it won't be, what I'm saying is that it's time to do this, be a good time to do this, won't it?
Our financial advisor, we met with Moody's on the bond that we just are working on refinancing right now. There's 2 bonds, $17 million, and we discussed that with them and our financial advisor. And our financial advisor says now is the time in terms of cost of money and getting construction people tied in. If you get in on the front of this, because it's slowed down for a period of time, then we could end up with the best of both of us.
Thank you.
Mr. Fox, did you have something? No?
I got a question.
Coach?
You ready?
No, you go right ahead, Coach.
What was the target date to bring this school online, or these schools online? Was it not 2022?
It is.
That's 2 years, right?
I'm sorry, it's 15 months. It's 15 months.
Well, you talk about August of 20.
I'm sorry, yes. August of 22, yes.
So it's over 2 years.
I talked to Lewis Group, before the April meeting. And let's just approach it from the standpoint of what happened. If the group was to say, let's just wait till July to talk about it, even if you do something in July, you're really pushing then, it's gonna take them 2 or 3 months to get, if it's them or if the board decides and there's a discussion about the professional services that they perform, I think is the right way to say that. So anyways, it would push them to where they wouldn't have a architect design and you wouldn't be hiring construction managers and those things till late fall. Now it's gonna be early winter, and then you're gonna be getting bids in late spring. And then they need to allow at a minimum probably 12 months, but they recommend 12 to 18 to build the school itself. So that means really you've got to have your ducks in a row pretty soon.
Well, the only, we built Mountain Horde and Patriot Academy. It didn't take 2 years to get those schools open. I don't see it waiting until July. You still got 2 years. And me personally, that's one reason I pushed it to July, because it made a difference to me in the motion, but it's, I don't know. It's still, the economy's shaky. Maybe it's a good time to borrow money, but the people of Jefferson County have to pay it back. And if they're not worth it and they can't pay the land taxes, you can't pay your debt back. It's just as simple as that. That was my reason behind it. There were a lot of people out of work, and we're putting them in debt. What, $20 million? So, yeah, that's my concern is, we need the schools. I have nothing against that. This COVID-19, things are going to change differently. This next school year, we won't recognize it, just like what we've got to take care of some things. We got to teach kids differently. We're going to have to do a lot of technology, and it's just, I'm getting off the subject of the motion, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around this thing, and it's still increasing. We've not brought it, the scientific community hasn't brought it under control. It's not going to happen until there's a vaccine. It's just tough to put people in debt, and they're not working, and they're having trouble. How many meals did we feed people? We've fed a lot of people.
Now, it was open.
And they needed it.
It was open to any child.
Yes.
Any child 18 or older.
I don't know. I'm in a kind of I'm in a quandary. I want to build the schools that need to be built. I know that. But I just hate to put people in debt.
Is there any lead work that can be,
I'm sorry.
I'm done.
I'm sorry. I can't catch who was next.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cox, if you've been wanting to speak, please go next.
okay, is there any lead work that can be done, any work that can be done that really doesn't commit us to exactly what you're saying, which is we have to go, but we don't know where property is, we don't know. What can be done working toward expediting the process once we do have that vaccine or that vision of, or guidance from the state or vision of what's coming up? Is there anything you can do there?
At the pleasure of the board was to guide us to pursue scenario whatever. And I say us, some of our people would work on some of the academic information. It would, not to purchase any land or anything like that. We could also look for what's available out there to bring back and report. Again, every board handles that a little differently. I think the biggest thing that we would do is he would be able to go to the next step, Mr. Potts that is, and look, and he's called it a full investment grade something, radial tires, I don't know, what do you call that thing?
A full analysis of our debt in our county.
To where instead of having generalizations, you could have a better firm idea.
Right, so the question you asked me, we would have CTASC and our financial advisor both coming back and giving us a professional grade answer to your question.
So additionally, I think Mr. Jarnigan is talking about it and voting on it are two different things. So if the board was to move in such a way that authorized the finance director in my office to start working, yes, you can get farther down the road to where, when the board does feel comfortable, June, July, August, September, October, November, a year from now, that legwork can be done. But the board could have the opportunity to come back again, June, July, August, September, a year from now, and say, all right, you've got that information, now we don't want to do it. Like Coach said, when Ms. Fair shared last time, we could be in a much worse situation, where now we could be in a much better. Just the timeline, though, bumped it down. If you don't approve it till August, then you're bidding and you're going to be hiring people when, as he said, the financial advisor said, we're getting on the tail end of folks, then we're going to just end up spending more than we would have originally. That's not to advocate, that's just to say one way or
My
another.
belief is if we don't start doing something, we're not going to know until we get to August that, yes, and then we're starting this, so I may be out of place here, but if we're not spending money, and you all are able to get some things done, and we're not jeopardizing the work or renovations for other schools, I would propose that we consider beginning that work.
We also have, this board would have a decision to make as well at some point in time. I checked with your board attorney and on this, and because of the way that the Lewis Group was hired, they were hired to come up with needs assessment and possible solutions. And then we would want to double check that as well, so you could save time if you felt like that was the group you wanted to use. I'm not advocating that. They've already done the work, they're close to it, or you can bid out who the architect's going to be. But again, all those decisions affect either, we don't move fast in government, you know what I mean? So, you can gain some speed by making some choices, but you know, you want to be smart with, like Coach said, with everybody's money.
Ms. Pinkerton?
Well, Coach has left. I'd rather talk when he comes back.
Okay, do you want to wait for Coach, or do you want to go ahead and speak?
Why don't we just take a break?
All right, we'll take a break till he comes back. We'll recess. Meeting back to order. I believe Ms. Pinkerton, you've got the floor, then Ms. Fair, then Coach Bradley. Thank you.
Okay, Coach Bradley, of what you're saying, I understand completely that you're looking at the financial, you're worried about the people, but I also think I'm looking at the financial. We're a living example right now. If we don't start this, we are a living example of why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The first meeting I came to and sat on the school board, Ms. Fair was talking about Jefferson Elementary. The windows are, she just went on and on, y'all haven't done anything, the school is bad. And every meeting for about 2 or 3 months, she kept talking about Jefferson Elementary. So I finally thought, well, you know, I ought to check into this. I called the principal, I talked to him, I asked him, I said, tell me some things about your school. He told me. It sounded about, then when we took the tour through Jefferson Elementary, Miss Fair and the principal hadn't even started to address the problems in that school. I think if we keep waiting, if we wait 2 more years to do something, then we're going to have to spend money putting a boiler in, we're going to have to spend money putting a roof on, we're going to have to spend money doing this and that. It's all wasted money. Why waste money? Why not put it into a new building that will protect?
We're not asking him, I mean, directed towards him.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was just my, okay, I didn't mean it towards you directly.
Ma'am, I
I'm
know
sorry.
about that.
Okay, well,
I mean, I
please,
know
please,
that
please.
bit.
All right, Ms. Fair.
It's not that.
Mr. Potts was talking about how it could be possible that we might be able to fund some things when some debt starts falling off in chunks. The key word that I picked out of that was possible. We have no idea what next week is going to hold. Us making a decision to go forward with attempting to build buildings in the middle of a global pandemic is ludicrous. It's ridiculous. This is not something we should even be talking about right now. We may not even be in a building next year at all. May not start in August, may not start in January, may have to be homeschooled all year next year. This pandemic may have changed the course of education as we knew it forever, but yet we want to jump in and spend money on buildings. I can't believe that we're even having this discussion again. We're jumping the gun just like we did with the football field, because guess what? We spent $2.4 million and that really got utilized this spring, didn't it? Didn't need it, did we? But we spent the money and it sits there and we're not even going to have a graduation to utilize the field. We're going to have nothing on it. Brand new tennis courts sitting there, empty. Why? Because of a global pandemic we didn't plan for, couldn't plan for, had no idea was coming. But yet you guys want to jump up and let's go ahead and start building buildings that we may never use.
Is there anything else Coach wants to speak? I'm just asking, I'm just trying to
Well,
maneuver.
I was pausing
I
and you jumped
apologize,
on
I'm
me.
real bad to do that, I do apologize. Yes, go ahead.
$24 million, rough estimate, we don't have. And to reiterate what Coach said, we have the highest unemployment rates because of a pandemic. Of course we do. Very few of us are considered essential workers that still hold our jobs and our same wages. You're asking this county to attempt to go on paper and pay back a debt when we don't even know what our sales tax revenue is going to be. Maybe it'll be okay. Maybe. Maybe it won't. I don't think this is something that we need to talk about right now.
Okay, I would like to, if I may, can I speak just a minute?
I have a solution.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to rescind the motion. We haven't talked really about the motion to rescind. We're kind of jumping ahead, but the motion on the floor is to rescind the April postponement of the discussion. It has nothing to do with spending money or anything else, but the motion on the floor is to rescind the April motion. Thank you, Coach.
Okay, I'm going to talk about that to make it legal, okay, the motion. But I would like for somebody to recall the motion that was made concerning the two schools. Yeah, I think it was a very simple motion to build a new school for Jeff Elementary and Piedmont in their district. I mean, that was a simple motion, correct? Now, solution-wise, like what Bessie said, and I could go along with this, rescind both motions, the motion postponed, rescind the motion to build the schools, and then we turn Langdon loose on money stuff, lay the groundwork, and we can come back then in July, August, even September, and do that motion, but we'd have the groundwork already laid out, and we're not wasting time. Now, I don't know what he needs as far as the motion, but what I'm saying is we need to rescind the motion to postpone, rescind the motion to build the two schools, and then make a motion giving Langdon, our finance director, the authority to start looking into financial things, which are right here as far as I'm concerned. I'm finished now, so.
I'm just looking, are you sure?
Oh.
Okay. Did
No,
you pause and, are you
No,
pausing?
I really am. That's
Okay.
my solution.
Okay, before we speak again, I really think the only comments we need to continue to talk about have to be with the motion that's on the floor to rescind the April motion to postpone the discussion of the from July. That's what we need to talk about. Is there anybody else that has anything to say about the motion that's on the floor? Okay, the motion's on the floor, it's properly seconded, we're going to vote. Those that are in favor to rescind the motion from the April 2020 meeting, postponing the discussion of the new school construction until July, please raise your right hand. Those opposed?
Me.
Motion passes 6-1. Okay?
I'm
So
gonna
that-
agree.
okay. Just, that puts the original motion, like Coach said, back on the floor to build. That's Mr. Jarnigan.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
we can sit here and talk all night about this, because it's not our place to come up with the money. Our finance director and our budget committee of our county has the authority to tell us if we can afford it or if we cannot afford it. Am I correct?
Yes.
So if we sit here and make a motion to build the new schools, and it's presented to the budget committee, and they say we can't afford it, that's all we can do. Am I correct?
You're correct.
So why should we sit here, I'll agree with Coach Bradley, I hate to put anybody in debt, but we cannot sit here and wait till this thing is completely over before we start doing anything. If we do, we're gonna be way, way behind. And I will agree with every word that's been said. Coach, we don't know what's gonna happen. We may not,
Got that right.
we may not need these schools.
Yep.
But old Columbus took a chance, didn't he? So I feel like we've gotta take a chance.
Okay, so are you so the
Got a
original
motion
motion's on the floor?
No, motion's on the floor.
Right.
And the motion is there. She made the motion. That's the motion we're dealing with right now, is the one that she made.
Well, and Coach, I thought, and maybe I misunderstood what was given to us, because I admit, doing it over Zoom or WebEx or whatever we were doing is a little bit more difficult for me than sitting here with everybody. I thought we were told if we did not make a motion to build, that they could not go to the finance people. They could not even start looking for land, that we had to have the motion in order for those things to be started. But then once they were started, if we said we don't have the money, then we quit.
Okay,
So was that the intent of your motion? Pardon me.
Right, go ahead, go ahead.
Was that the intent of your motion to begin laying the groundwork?
Yes, sir.
Taking care, okay.
Yes, sir. And not that I don't want to build them, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely,
I do
understand.
want to build them, but
We gotta know what we need to know.
we got to get started to know what we need to know if we can build them.
There you
That's
go.
what I was
Okay.
under the impression.
Read your motion. What was your motion?
The motion, please. The motion on the floor is to build 2 new schools in the districts that they're currently in. You can either vote that motion, I didn't mean you. We can either vote that motion up or down, we can amend it, or it can be withdrawn. But that's what we need to talk about, because that's what's on the floor, because we voted to rescind the motion to postpone.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Jones?
I'd like to make a motion that we proceed.
No, the
You
motion,
can't do that. There's a
it's
motion.
already on the
There's a motion
floor.
on the
It's
floor.
been made, it's been seconded.
So the motion, we're back to, just for clarity, is to build the schools that was made in April. That can be amended or dropped, am I understanding?
It can be voted up and down, it can be amended, or it can be withdrawn. That's our options.
So I could then make an amendment.
You
Perfect.
certainly may.
I would like to make an amendment to that motion that states that we would like for our finance director and director of schools and the budget committee for the county to begin laying the groundwork, giving us the information we need to make an educated decision once that's complete.
You're talking about the finance director and the director of schools. The only other thing that I would like to clarify about your motion
Okay.
is I don't think that you should involve the budget committee, and I could be wrong on this, Mr. Potts, until the board has completely decided to build for sure.
I think that's right, and if you remember back in our work session, when we talked about, when you all decide what you want to do, then I've got a number to go to.
Right.
That's the real question right now, of why I say we probably can. I know what we can afford on the debt service side from my standpoint. I need to go to CTASC and to our financial advisor to get them to certify, if you will, that number makes sense from us as a county in terms of our overall debt.
Certainly.
So if I have an idea of what you're going to do, I'll start that process, and then I'll come back and present it to you. And if you all want me to go from there, then that's what we'll do. We'll go to the budget committee or finance committee, whichever one it is.
Right. And we won't know what we don't know until we get that information from you, is the reason
That's right.
I would like for that to happen.
And also, we don't know if we even have land available in these 2 districts until we
Right.
look at that, right?
Something's got to start.
So the intent of your motion is to gather information,
To gather information.
research, and report back.
Correct. More than what, outsourced book is.
Let me read that one more time. So the motion is to amend the original motion to direct the finance director and the director of schools to bring more detailed information about the motion to build 2 new schools.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
Do I need to repeat that again? Does that make sense? Amendment is for the finance director and the director of schools to bring back information concerning the building of 2 new schools. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Jonathan? Any other discussion? I'd like to say something. It is our responsibility, I feel like, to continue to plan ahead. It takes forever for the government to make a decision, and it is crucial to gather information and have the best information you have to make this type of decision. While we are gathering information, our world will become different. We'll have answers to the questions that you've brought up today. But I do not believe that we should stop living and planning for what's best for our kids. Now, I know there's a lot of things that have happened this year that nobody could plan. But when we met in January, we had a great retreat. We talked about raises. We talked about buildings. We made plans for the school system. And I would just like to say, I think we need to continue on that path. And if something happens that we need to reconvene and really look at it, we will. But until we have some answers, we're just still shooting in the dark, wasting time. That's all I have to say.
Call the question.
Question's been called for. The motion is to amend the original motion for the finance director and the director of schools to bring information back about the building of the 2 new schools. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? And the motion passes 5-2. So now, we have to vote on the motion. All right? All right, parliamentary?
Goes back to the motion if
Yep.
it had failed. Is that right?
It hadn't been voted on because it was postponed. So we voted on the amendment, now we have to vote on the motion of the original motion to build the 2 new schools in their district. The motion's been
Explain
made.
to us what our
The
vote
motion's
is.
been made, it's been properly seconded, but it was never voted on.
Okay, but explain to me what a yes and a no vote means on it.
Okay, if you vote yes, then you're voting to build 2 new schools in the district. That's
With
what
the amendment?
The amendment is to bring back information,
It's a part of the motion.
but it's
What
part
you-
of, it's part of the motion.
Right.
Yes, it is.
Unless somebody amended to delay the building until that information came back, would that be correct?
Well, the amendment right now, I think is attached to the motion, because it's
It
been
is.
made and properly seconded. So that's the motion.
So what if at this point, what if I rescind my,
You can't.
I can't?
You
You make a
cannot.
motion to build.
Because there's been an amendment made attached to the motion, so you can vote it up or down. It's already been amended. You can't withdraw it because we voted an amendment in. So right now, we're to the point where we need to vote it up or down.
So if we vote yes,
You're building 2 new schools.
but we get to do the amendment?
Yes, you're voting to build 2 new schools, but you're also going to receive the information.
Okay, if we vote no
You're voting not to build 2 new schools.
and not to get the information either?
Now,
since
you've
it's
already voted to receive the information.
So you're either gonna get the information in those schools right now, or you're gonna get the information followed by 2 schools.
Or you're gonna get the information, you're gonna vote for 2 schools and get information and then vote to change your mind.
That's right. Then you can vote to rescind or change.
So later on, we could vote.
You can always rescind.
If he comes back, says it's not feasible, they come back saying there's no land, then we can always vote no. Bring it up,
Everything is changeable. That's the great things about building schools. Okay. Now, are we all clear about where we
Muddy
need to
water
go
clear.
right now? Am I correct on what I'm saying, parliamentarian?
That amendment is now a part of
That
the motion.
That's right. All right.
We're voting, it's as if you said it yourself. It just goes on the end of your motion,
That's right.
whatever your motion was.
So here we are. Anybody have anything else they want to say about the motion? Are we ready to vote? Okay. What we're voting on now is the motion that was made in April to build 2 new schools in their current school district. All those in favor of the motion to build these 2 new schools, please raise your right hand.
Now, read the amendment, read it all together. It's all one motion.
Okay, the motion is to build 2 new schools for Jefferson Elementary, Piedmont Elementary in their school district, amended for the finance director and the director of schools to bring information back to the new building of the new schools. Basically, it's cost information, financial only.
I don't know what
So is that
I assume it's financial, it's
Yes.
money, yeah.
Well, it's clear. It makes it clear. It just makes the motion clear. Okay? All right.
The motion has to include the amendment.
It is.
That's
Yeah,
what, well,
it is included. Okay. Now, all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
I'm gonna throw the towel in and
6. All those opposed? And the motion passes 6-1. All right, now, just to clarify, there's always a way to change motions. It's not really fun, but you can do it, okay? So, we give in direction, and that's a good thing. We kind of come up with a plan. All right. Anything else on this unfinished business number 1? Seeing none. Next is employee compensation during COVID-19.
That's the handout we gave you, the hours approximate.
Yes.
Just the pleasure, do you want us to?
Is there a motion to be put on the floor? All right. Seeing none, is there anything else anybody would like to bring before the board? Dr. Johnson?
I just want to say again to thank the students and parents that came, and we've not ruled anything out. We've got the one thing planned to make sure we get them something, but I've reached out to some students and we'll continue to do that next week. Appreciated the parents talking about getting some input, and so I'll try my best to work with them in conjunction with the health department and others to see what we can do going forward, but we've not ruled anything out at this time.
Madam Chairman, I want to say on what he was saying about the graduation, that I would really like and ready to look and see if we can do something a bit different and look, see if we can do something for these kids, because they do deserve it. It's just something, Dr. Johnson, just to see, give something to these kids. They deserve it. I know it's got to be social distance and everything like that, but I think that they earned it. And to me, I like the 2-person, the parents of our, whoever took care of the student, just to see them walk across the stage. That'd tip anybody today. Just something for them to help their family ease the time. And I hate it that this has happened. I don't know, I got a kid in school, she's a sophomore, but, you know, it's something they work for. And I think that we're here for the kids, but I like to see you look into something to help them, to do something to make the parents and everybody satisfied.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Pinkerton?
Do we have a call meeting next week, or because
No,
we voted?
passed the budget, we're done. We don't need to meet until June unless something comes up that I know of. Is that right?
And then there is a call meeting in June to,
No, we're done.
oh, I thought we had to take it.
Oh, the budget amendments at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right, I forgot about that.
Okay, can you tell me that date? I'm sorry. I'm like, I have so much on my calendar now, but.
June 4 is
take mask off.
June 4 is the regular date.
my calendar's full too.
And June 29th is the
I'm
cleanup.
Santa Claus.
Okay.
Is that right, Mr. Potts?
What day is it?
June 4th is the regular meeting. June
Okay.
29th is the cleanup meeting.
I want to say also that thanks Lincoln Parks for, and director of schools to getting the budget together. I really do that. He's been a good help.
It's a valuable asset to our county. What?
Anything else? Yeah,
I have a question.
Coach? Okay,
So, we took no action on graduation.
right.
So your plan is still the plan?
We're gonna do that as the bird in hand, so to speak, and then we're gonna explore other options and see what we can do.
Yeah. Can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
Thank you. All of us went to your training that lasted all day on Brick Road, or remember that day, it was 8 hours of, I remember one word from that 8 hours. That word was safety. That was our job, to make sure our students were safe. We have a scientific community that is telling us to do 3 things. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and stay away from each other. Okay? And we seem to not be listening to that anymore. And anyway, I'm done. I could go on this, but I just, safety, okay? We need to keep that in mind, safety.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you. It's good to see you all. See you on June 4th.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you.